Okay. So I want to propose that we just discuss the statement. So I've got three points in this statement, which has come from our discussion so far. Ofsted's function, it is there. It says it's there to raise standards. You've indicated that. It's quite clear on the motto. It says it raises standards, but actually that's not its role at all. Its role is to measure where it is against a set of criteria, and let the school know and let the public know how well it's done with that grading.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
And I think it is mission creep on Ofsted's part, and arrogance actually on Ofsted's part, to say that they have anything to do with raising standards. You're right, that all their warrant is to measure them. Now, okay, what that does in, I guess, their minds is that incentivizes professional colleagues in schools to raise standards. But again, you're back to this fear factor thing, though, aren't you? Is that, well, is the motivation then through fear? But then there's this other point that I think is very important to this, is that let's say you get found outstanding, doesn't that create a complacency? Because as you have said many times, Nick, and I completely agree with you, every school, every professional colleague requires improvement.
That's the nature of professionalism.
That's the nature of professionalism. And we shouldn't be afraid or ashamed of that. And that isn't a failing grade at all. In fact, somebody who is engaging in improvement is, I think, outstanding. So, you may be requiring improvement and engaging in improvement. That means that you're a professional colleague. Let's just leave it at that and stop, pronouncing these ridiculous grades and what they mean.
So that leads on quite nicely to the sword of Damocles effect. Having this fear of Ofsted coming in, we ought, as teachers, never to instill fear, because the research is absolutely clear at the moment. The limbic system will shut down. The part of the brain that allows learning to happen the best will shut down in fear. And the practice that emerges is compliance from this kind of testing. And it does not encourage the practice of improvement. It encouraged the practice of proving that you comply with the rendered down criteria as defined by the government, effectively through Ofsted. Again, nobody's got an issue with Ofsted, with its desire to measure where schools are. But the way it's doing it is the killer. Is the killer at the moment. The sword of Damocles effect is a problem, and the practice that emerges is compliance. I don't know. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would, because fear is the worst form of motivation. Because I mean,
how do we come to work every day and face a classroom full of kids, most of whom want to learn, when you are frightened if they don't? When you as the teacher are frightened if they don't learn. Surely you just need to be reflective. You need to be reflective when things happen in class. You need to think, that didn't work. How can I do better? What can I do? Let me go to my research. Let me conduct new research. Let me read. Let me talk to colleagues.
I couldn't agree more with that, Nick. And it comes back to another thing that I know we've talked about before, and that is this. It's almost reduces the thing to, the kind of thing that happens in sport when, let's say a game in sport is deadlocked, and then it comes to some final decision-making moment, and that's the penalty shootout, for example, and that's when all pressure and responsibility rests on the shoulders of you know,
One individual.
one individual, you
Mm,
know, who either stands or falls
mm,
in that particular moment, and you can see the impact that that has on absolutely fantastically skilled individual footballers or rugby players, or, you know, whatever sport this is in. You
mm,
can see their expertise
mm,
ebbing away. You can
mm,
see their doubt beginning to encroach into their minds.
mm.
And is, you know, is that what we want to put teachers through? It's though it's a sport. It's like it's a penalty shootout. We should
Yeah.
correct the grandstands of publicity and let individuals be ridiculed and humiliated in this very, very public
Yeah.
way. It is kind of pillorying, you know, it's like
Yeah.
medical justice, you know.
Mm.
Um,
And your thing about the requires improvement, you mentioned something really interesting there, because this one school, Ruth Perry's school, Caversham Primary, was effectively devastated by not one grading but two. The first one was outstanding, and that led them possibly, I doubt it, but I'm sure they did improve in many ways. They improved over that decade between the two inspections, or 13 years. But the outstanding led them to educate people, and but not necessarily pick up on the things that could have been picked up earlier had it been inspected 6 years ago or 8 years ago.
the tendency for schools to become complacent once they've received an outstanding grade, I think,
Mm,
is there. You know,
yeah.
because you just think, well, you know, we've hit the heights, we're as good as we can be.
Mm,
Let's just kind of coast along. And you're
mm,
right, that is what happens.
mm,
You know, things do get missed, and I think Ofsted is sorry, the outstanding grade is almost like a kiss of death.
mm,
You know, to in some respects, just get rid of these grades. I mean, they're
mm,
nonsensical. And I
yeah.
think they actually patronize the public. The public realize that things in schools are more complicated than that. So don't dumb us down, you know.
Mm.
Um, that's my personal view on it, really.
Mm.
Anyway, enough. I